Here is the example. The brain is a biological neural network, not so different from the ones used to train LLMs like ChatGPT. The brain has three massive advantages though. It has more connections. It's astonishing, but a single human brain has 100 trillion synapses, which is more than the huge data centers that current AI like ChatGPT is trained at. It's just a biological miracle, the human brain. It's actually, if you don't know, the human brain is the most complex structure humans know in the universe. Then the brain has parallelism. The brain processes information in a massively parallel way, while GPT models operate on digital hardware that processes data sequentially or in limited parallelism in GPUs. And the energy efficiency difference is just mind-boggling. The brain uses about 20 watts of power, while the training of ChatGPT 4 required many megawatt hours of energy. So we hear orders of magnitude of difference. Not even the immense operational speed of computer hardware can compensate for the above. This is why these videos, I Grow Younger, is not written by AI, because humans are still better at creating content, explaining concepts, and in many things. We talk about brains and computers for a reason. The best way to understand our difference in power between intuition and logic is comparing it to hardware and software. Why? Because intuition and logic in our brain act so differently that we cannot really compare. Let's see this comparison. Chess is a logical game. It's based mostly on calculating variations. Also, in the end of the variations, you have to evaluate the position, which is another critical component in which humans are much better than machines because it's kind of visual. This is why humans were better at chess up to year 1997, which is when, for the first time, a computer, Deep Blue, beat the reigning world chess champion, Garry Kasparov. And this showed that chess is not completely logical, because in completely logical tasks like breaking codes, computers were better than humans, even at World War II, when they were very much worse than they are today. However, today the computers rule chess. On your phone, which is tiny lousy CPU designed to be less powerful so it can save battery, you can install off-the-shelf chess software that will not just beat the world chess champion, it will totally obliterate him. On the other hand, even though ChatGPT was trained for months and enormous amounts of data in an enormous data center, gave this answer to this question. They asked GPT-4, it takes 3 hours to dry 3 shirts in the sun. How long does it take to dry 6 shirts? And ChatGPT answered, if it takes 3 hours to dry 3 shirts, this implies that it takes 1 hour to dry 1 shirt. Therefore, to dry 6 shirts, it would take 6 hours. Which is wrong and very funny, but it shows how much LLMs still lack. They corrected this into the later version, but still, very often, ChatGPT is performing worse than humans in things that involve reasoning. So, ChatGPT 4 has almost unlimited memory, has learned a huge amount of human knowledge, like everything that's on the internet. But it's still very far away from exceeding the best humans in any field, except maybe copywriting, even though it was given megawatt hours of energy and millions of times more powerful hardware than the phone in your pocket. And this is all while knowledge and language is just somewhat more intuitive than chess. Because chess is mostly logic, but has the intuitive component of evaluating the positions after you calculate the variations. And knowledge and language have a definite logic part, they have structure. So when we compare, when we recap, let's see what happens. The phone plus chess software off the shelf is much better than the world champion's brain at chess, like total annihilation. The world chess champion's brain is, on average, better than the average human brain, because chess is very hard and the world chess champion is very strong in intellect, in logic, in everything. But the average human brain beats ChatGPT at simple problems about clothes drying in the sun, which is where more intuition is required. Even though ChatGPT 4 hardware and software power and cost are so much million times more than the phone and chess software power and cost. The world's best logical chess brain, the best human brain, loses by a mile from a $300 phone running an off-the-shelf software. Meanwhile, your average intuitive brain beats the world's billion-dollar best proprietary intuitive AI. Now, when you connect the dots, are you starting to see why logic and intuition are not two sides of the same coin? This comparison to tech products clearly shows that your intuition, if properly developed and trusted, is millions of times more powerful than your logic. It's not even a comparison. In order to understand why the difference in power is so huge, you can make another kind of technology. It's very helpful to understand the difference. The following is a big oversimplification, but it's highly illustrative. In computer terms, our logical brain is lots of hard drive data, all of our memories in the brain, and language and our formal education and structures of knowledge. And it has enough RAM memory. It has a very tiny, lousy CPU. It knows a lot. It's very bad at making decisions. It's very prone to errors. So it's good to store information, but it's not good to make decisions. You may ask then, how did logic emerge to be as valued as it is today? At the scale of humanity, logic becomes stupendously better and more useful. Because with storage and knowledge transfer not being a limitation like it is with intuition, the lousy CPUs, our lousy logical processors, unite into a giant hive computer with a great error correction mechanism, the scientific method. Everyone can suggest ideas and decisions, but only the best ones get incorporated into the general body of knowledge of humanity. But still, remember that our lousy processors started at a level so low that this super useful, super admirable scientific process is still slow and very imperfect. Now it's better, but during the most of humans' history, it was very slow and imperfect. For example, we have to be thankful that for more than 2000 years, our lousy logical CPUs, with the massive help of intuition of individual brilliant people who made not incremental but giant leaps forward, people like Isaac Newton or Albert Einstein, they barely got us, all of these people, for all of those years, from Aristotle in ancient Greece to high-end technology today. If you were born 370 years ago and a whopping 1930 after Aristotle, your life would have been much more similar to the peers of Aristotle than to ours. In 1650, we didn't know biology was made of cells. We didn't know bacteria existed. It took our billions of lousy logical CPUs 1930 years of watching billions and billions of people live and die, including from bacteria-caused plagues. And they still had no idea that bacteria existed. This is how slow logical process is. It's very hard to build data on data. In comparison, Japanese sword making, which is one of the most astonishing crafts in the world, it was already at its best in 1650. It hasn't improved much since then because the process of making a Japanese samurai sword is complex, but it's highly intuitive. You bang on a piece of steel all day, and after doing this for 30 years, you reach insane levels of mastery. But if you ask some of those true sword masters how they do it, they will often not be able to explain because it has become a part of them. They know how to do it perfectly, but there are no rules for this. It's just intuitive. On the contrary, our intuitive brain has the same vast hard drive data, the data points for the intuition. Unlike logic, it has a super powerful CPU, very powerful, with a more parallel structure, more like the GPUs used for machine learning and AI. But it has almost no RAM, no short-term memory. It generates great decisions on the fly, but there are no logs as to how they are reached. The memory is already overwritten because it has to make the next decision. That's the shortcut. And even if we had logs about how intuition works, they will be too complex to be useful. And nature doesn't use anything that is not useful. So intuition works great. It's the best shortcut possible. It gives us great solutions, and it doesn't give us reasoning, which is also kind of good on a personal level because this reasoning would take away our mental space when we already have the right decision. And since it all works great, the right answer to all the why questions, to the search for reasoning, should be who cares? It works. That's it. You don't need a reason if it works. Evolution prepared us to survive in a complex environment, not to ask why questions, but the people in sheep mode, whose lives are dominated by box thinking, they have a huge need for control. And control also means reasons, logic. And they cannot skip the why. They refuse to trust their intuition. And in result, they enter the decision-making arena handicapped, because you have a super powerful tool and a super lousy tool, which is logic, and you decide to just use the super lousy tool. It's like if you went somewhere to war to fight in the trenches and only take a bow and arrows instead of a machine gun. That's what these people do. We are already equipped with the best decision-making tool. Some people, they just refuse to use it, even though it's still in them. And even worse, when not trained and trusted, intuition fades and its whispering voice becomes even harder to hear. Logical thinking is also way more exhausting. So those people, they're not only ineffective and less successful, they also have a harder life, a less joyful life, because logical thinking is a boxy thing, prevents their flows, and it's exhausting their energy. At the scale of humanity, things cannot improve that much. With intuition, as without short-term RAM memory, we're just black boxes. We can share our decisions, but without being able to share our reasoning, it's hard for others to build on those decisions. At least not in the way that we do with science and the scientific method. But don't forget, we started at a much higher level. We started with something that is millions of times more powerful. This is why great scientists like Einstein, they shine with intuition, not just logic, not just equations. Einstein discovered the very unknown by his time nature of the universe of space-time because he also had intuition, not just because he was able to do mathematical calculations and equations. But the asymmetry goes on. You can influence your life and the others around you with good choices directly. If you want to be logical and scientific, you can contribute to our shared body of knowledge. But this is a slow, very indirect way of contributing. This is why most of us are not scientists, after all. Direct effects are more predictable, stronger, they cause faster positive feedback loops, they motivate us, which means that if intuition helps you here and now, it's usually more valuable than your very hypothetical contribution to the global body of knowledge that may or may not take place in the future. So even though this kind of seems like there is a balance that intuition helps you and logic helps humanity, I can tell you that intuition will probably also help humanity more. You surely need intuition in order to have a rich life, full of possibilities, seeing the whole width of your choices. The question is rather, do you need logic apart from the basic math skills and science concepts? Do you need logic in your everyday choices? In order to answer this, three clear questions emerge. First, do you make decisions that affect humanity by contributing to our common body of knowledge? Are you a scientist, innovator, engineer, or very unorthodox, innovative entrepreneur? If so, you need logic so you can collaborate and communicate in the common language of science. Two, do you work as a non-primary teacher or mentor to help other people develop the logic with which they will affect humanity by contributing to our common body of knowledge? If so, you need logic so you can teach in the common language of science. Even though knowledge may come from your intuition, you need logic to express it into a structure which others can learn from. And three, does your work require logic because of too many rules? Let's not delude ourselves. If you are a lawyer, accountant, police officer, military, some other occupations, they cannot escape logic because they serve as cogs in our social machine. You cannot just freestyle it. But what if the answer is no to all of those? Do you need logic in your life if you're in those at least 50% of humanity that would answer no to the above questions? In this case, I'll make the controversial claim that you need almost no deep logical thinking in your life. And every time you make the leap of faith to replace it with intuition, amazing things happen. The richness will just astonish you if you haven't tried. Believe me, I was thinking and overthinking all along the first 20 years of my life. It got me nowhere. I was in a mathematical high school. I was thinking about becoming a software developer. I'm so thankful that I didn't. And life is much better without the thinking and overthinking part. And I'm here to help you trust your intuition and let go. Make the leap of faith.